On today's Locked On Warriors, we have a packed rundown. Despite nothing actually happening, Will Richard has played basketball for the Golden State Warriors. A detailed dive of what he brings to the fold. Also, Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal, if you had to pick one of those two players. And Draymond Green, still the heartbeat to this team? We're debating on today's Locked On Dubs.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's good, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Warriors. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube. I'm your host. My name's Chuck Walter, formerly on 95.7 in the Bay Area. I also cover the team for CBS. Now one of the hosts, or the host of this show, along with a slew of great analysts like Mike Loginoff, who joins the program today. Played collegiate basketball. He's from the Bay Area. Born and raised in San Mateo, played his basketball at St. Ignatius in the city, shot at about 39% from deep. I'm making that up, but I know he was a sharpshooter. Let me tell you what, if you're a sharpshooter on the books, FanDuel is the place to get in on the action, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. For those of you checking out this show for the first time, YouTube, audio podcasts, we're always free, never behind a paywall. Find me on all the big social medias at CWalter22 on Instagram, at It's Charlie Walter on TikTok, and at Charlie Walter TV on Twitter. I mean, I go by two different names, Mike. I have three different social media handles. I can't keep track of my life. What's up, man? I can keep track of the Warriors offseason because they haven't done anything. How we feeling, man? Mute monster got you right out of the gate, Mike.
Beautiful, beautiful. Chuck, I was going to say, we got a lot to talk about with the Warriors offseason moves, but I also, people forget second place, Bonte Hill. He organized the San Francisco All-Star game. Second place in the three-point shooting contest to my former AAU teammate, Tyler Petroni, from Sacred Heart. So, you kind of struck a nerve there with that one. But good to be back, Chuck. Excited to chat. We can chat some Summer League, talk about the plethora of moves just going on in the front office at One Warriors Way. He's got Shams working hard, really talking about all the various hypotheticals that we have in the offseason so far. But we're looking forward to diving into it.
The only team in the NBA that has not made a move in free agency are your Golden State Warriors. I'm going to pose the question later in the show. Are you a fan of that? We're also going to talk some Dame Lillard or Bradley Beal. Draymond Green is on today's program. But let's start with real basketball. Summer League action. I know you've been dialed into Will Richard. You have a little connection, a little source that knows a lot about Will Richard. So you're going to give us a detailed breakdown. But first things first, I want to kind of give you some of the action from Sunday's game, where the Warriors had a few guys really star for him. LJ Cryer, who I've been crying about this offseason, that I think he can be someone that actually carves out a maybe not significant role, but a role on this upcoming Warriors team. He had 19 points. He's just a competitor, high motor, great shooter, 5 of 7 from 3 in the Summer League game. Did have 3 turnovers. That's something to keep an eye on against higher competition. But I will say this, he was the best shooter in the Big 12 3 straight seasons, did it at 2 separate programs in Baylor and Houston. 6'1", and he's a shooting guard. That's all you need to know about why he did not get drafted. But I will say this, he can ball, and do not sleep on LJ Cryer. I think you're going to see him in a Warriors uniform this upcoming season, and 5 of 7 in his second Summer League game. That's pretty impressive. Will Richard, the 59th pick, in his first Summer League game, he went for 16 points, struggled from the floor, shot at just 3 of 10, but did go 8 of 8 from the line, and stuffed a stat sheet like he did at Florida, had a couple steals, 4 rebounds. And if Gary Payton II is no longer a dub, you need someone to fill that void. And the player doesn't have to be a direct comparison, a defensive stalwart like Payton, but he's got to have those minutes filled by a viable option. There's 10 to 15. And you would hope that Richard can be that guy. If he can give you 10 plus minutes by, January, that would be huge for the 59th pick in the 2025 draft. And then Isaiah Mobley, another guy that stood out, older brother of Evan Mobley. He's 25 years of age and has yet to stick in the NBA, which is typically never a good thing, right? Unless you're Lynn Sanity, you usually don't pop after having cups of coffee in the NBA. But he did have some Java with Cleveland and Philly, like Richard and Cryer. They're unknowns at this level, unlike Richard and Cryer, I should say. He's had a large enough sample size to where you don't really expect that breakout campaign, like I was saying. But we did have the same talk about GP2 in 2021, and Mobley had 16 points, 4 rebounds, way more skilled than Evan, but does not have the size or defensive ability. Does have good feel, whether he's facing the basket or whether he's got his back to it. Very good skill set for his size. Played in one game with Philly last year and 17 minutes, had 6 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He's 7 for 21 from 3 in his NBA career, and he's currently signed with Philly for what it's worth, but playing for the Warriors in the Summer League. But I want to take this to Will Richard, who was drafted in the second round, 59th overall. You've got a little deep dive for me on Will Richard. Give everyone the nuts and bolts of what they want to know.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm not a big J journalist here, with Locked On or KMBR. I like to think of myself as a big A analyst, right? I like to analyze things, but this is one of those cases that we're going to have maybe an outlier instance where, I got some sources close to Gainesville and down in the facility with the Gators, and the only things that I've heard about Will Richard are great things. To quote the source, he's an ultimate team first guy. He's got a great attitude. He's got a great work ethic. He really wants to be there. He really wants to be a Warrior. He wants to play, alongside the guys. He wants to play for Steve Kerr. And so I think that's a positive there. He's a shot maker. He loves competing. And ultimately, he's a national champion. And I think, looking at how he showed up in the final game of the tournament last year is indicative of his ability to, contribute in big moments, contribute in meaningful ways to, a team success and to a championship. And I think the way that you looked at him from the standpoint of maybe coming off the bench and playing 10 to 12 minutes later on in the season is the right way to think about him. I think, Gary Payton is someone that is just a tenacious defender. He's a great point of attack defender. He's been doing that for years. He's lost his step a little bit. I think we saw that to a degree last season. He was healthier last season than the season prior, but that's not saying too much, frankly. And I think that we saw, hesitation from Gary shooting the three, which I don't think we would see such hesitation from Will Richard. So if you're telling me that, we get a rookie coming into the rotation, getting 10 minutes a game just to, go be a bulldog to pester the opposing point guard 94 feet and to knock down, or at the very least willingly shoot the open shot and shoot it at a decent clip, I think that's what we could expect from Will Richard. And ultimately, you got to have guys that want to compete, that want to play in the system, and that want to be in that locker room. And I think that, from what I've heard, Will Richard seems to check all those boxes. So it's going to be exciting to see how he can contribute and break into the rotation in his rookie year.
I have some questions for Loginoff coming up on Locked On Warriors. Do you like Mike Dunleavy being patient this deep into free agency over a weekend at this point? Norman Powell, could he be on the table for the Dubs? Bradley Beal or Dame Lillard, if you had to choose? Kevin Love, could he potentially be on the table for the Warriors? We got a lot to get into, including Draymond Green and his impact on this upcoming year's team. That's all ahead on Locked On Warriors.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Let's tell you about America's #1 sports book. You know what that is. It's FanDuel. And right now is a great time for new customers because you get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, little football, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling with a little sprinkle? And with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet like prop bets. And it's easy to use. You get fast payouts and makes regular season games feel like the postseason. Whether you're placing a same game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are a part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can get that $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Locked On Warriors continues after this. All right. Warriors haven't done anything. Teams around the NBA have done a lot. Some teams, like the Brooklyn Nets, I wonder what the hell they're doing. In the Golden State Warriors instance, maybe patience is a virtue, and not doing something drastic and stupid would be a lot worse than, or I guess a lot better than just chilling and seeing how the market unfolds, which is what Golden State's doing. What do you think about Dunleavy's plan right here, which is just stay put, see how the rest of the action unfolds?
Yeah, Chuck, I think there's the way to think about the Warriors offseason, contextualize it, and the looking at last season, the big move that we made, right? We made the big splash with Jimmy. That's always going to be the big move. And now we're looking to complete things around the edges. And I think the way to think about it, coming from you, Chuck, waiting in the weeds, baby, waiting in the weeds to pounce. That's what you were saying. And that could be the same approach now, frankly, right? And I think that hinges on Jonathan Kuminga, right? Ooh, shocker. Kuminga's coming up today. And when you were talking about Mobley, I couldn't tell if you were describing him or Kuminga, but, that's neither here nor there. People are going to love that one in the comments. But the jokes aside, I think what's important to think about in the Warriors offseason is contextualizing it against, the Jimmy move, but then also the archetypes of players that we need, right? Whether that is, Al Horford, who apparently, forgot how to write and hasn't been able to sign the contract or doesn't have a pen, or his agent doesn't have a pen either. But so there's that. So a stretch
Al,
five.
can I get you a friend, Al? Take the pen.
Yeah, exactly. Phone a friend, right? And I think Al will eventually get over the finish line and give us that stretch five, give us a reliable big to contribute over the course of an 82-game season. Sprinkling in a little TJD and QP would never be a bad thing there too. Just get some young legs moving. Yeah, a little sprinkle. But it's stretch five. It's a reliable 3-and-D wing. And it's the archetype of a player that we'll be talking about later in the Dame Lillard, Bradley Beal, or dare I say Norman Powell. Could he be on the move from Miami? And so I think Golden State's not necessarily in a rush right now because also too, given the new CBA, which apparently has made it impossible to keep a team together, it's also made it seemingly impossible to have movement in the restricted free agent market, which frankly is probably not a good thing for the Warriors. Even if, the market would have given Kuminga potentially an offer in the $15 to $20 million range, which is, what I think is probably how people would value him. The fact that hasn't come in yet probably makes negotiations with the parties a little bit more challenging because it would have been much easier to have someone else come and set the price and say, hey, we think you're worth 18 or 20, as opposed to having Mike sit down with Jonathan and his representation and say, hey, we think you're worth 15 to 20. And then Jonathan to say, well, I don't believe you. I think I'm worth more. It's different to have an outside party come in and set that value. So that's obviously going to be the first domino. I think that has to fall. But from there, they can explore those kind of sign and trade scenarios where we can look for that. Maybe there's that guard that we can get like a Malik Monk, right? Who probably comes at a little bit less of a price compared to someone like a Norman Powell. And the only reason why I bring up Norman Powell is because of the links to Kuminga and the Heat potentially.
Can I interest you in Dario Saric?
A glass of Saric. You want to interest me with a glass of Saric? No, I'm gonna have to turn that one down. We've seen what Dario can do in a Golden State uniform, and I think the best thing that Dario does in a Golden State uniform is sit on the bench. And so I don't think we need more of that. I think we need some guys that can contribute.
All right, so this was earlier in the Monday cycle. Shams reporting that the Clippers, Jazz, and Heat agreed to a trade that sent Norman Powell to Miami, John Collins to the Clippers, and Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a Clippers second-round pick to the Jazz. So forever Warrior Kyle Anderson, now a Jazz. Also, Kevin Love, a Jazz. Obviously, there been some interest in the past, granted, over a decade ago at this point, and Kevin Love associated to the Golden State Warriors. But I think the name that sticks out of all those players and the moving parts is Norman Powell to Miami. What is Miami's plans with him? We don't know, but we do know that Miami has some serious interest in Jonathan Kuminga, or at least they did at one point. Norman Powell is someone that I guess that's where the debate comes in. Does he fit with the Golden State Warriors?
I think Norman Powell would be great on the Warriors, frankly, right? He's that secondary scorer that could really be a shot maker, a play finisher, can create for himself as well. He's a little bit older too, which what the Warriors apparently love. And, you bring up Kevin Love, no pun intended. I think that the Warriors are chomping at the bit to get Kevin Love in the room, given his age and the wear and tear on those tires. But jokes aside, I think Norman, that could be something that it wouldn't surprise me if that is a piece that could be moved again by Miami. Just given the linked interest to Kuminga, I could see, Kuminga and Moody going to Miami, a couple of younger guys for a more, veteran win now piece in Norman Powell. You bring Norman Powell in, he's 32 right now. He's, I think, making around $20 million. He's on an expiring deal. You'd hope to bring him back potentially for the last dance and, not this season, but the one after with Draymond, Steph, and Jimmy. And then that still gives you some wiggle room there. To bring in Al Horford. Maybe you bring in Norman's teammate, Amir Coffey, like we talked about last week, that reliable 3-and-D wing. I think Amir shot something to the tune of 43% on maybe, I think it was about 180 catch and shoot opportunities. So maybe you bring him in too. And that's how you kind of round out the rotation and consolidate the rotation, because you think about the depth chart and the pecking order. If you're slotting Pods into that kind of combo guard off the bench to be connective tissue, to be a glue guy, to be an energy guy off the bench, I think that's the right role for him. I think if he's your starting shooting guard, you have some reservations. But all in all, I think that, Norman Powell would be a great add.
Two names that have now been, I guess, rumored having some interest in the Golden State Warriors, or I guess not in the Golden State Warriors, but the Golden State Warriors have interest in them. You can tell that I got like an hour and a half of sleep last night, Loginoff. We had to wake up for the 9 to 5, man. And sometimes when you don't get enough sleep, you just can't talk, even as a professional broadcaster. So I apologize for that today, but enough about my struggles in life. Let's continue with the Golden State Warriors struggles of trying to find another supplementary piece. Dame Lillard, Bradley Beal, both have been kind of tied to having little Warriors interest. The Warriors, especially Dame Lillard, they've already made the call. It was Mark Spears who reported that. And then the Bradley Beal report is just that if the Suns basically say, see ya, the Warriors may look to him on a mid-level exception, which would be crazy if that could actually happen. Because Bradley Beal, he stinks because of the money, right? I've been talking about this a lot this offseason. Like, your value is based a lot of times with that dollar sign that's next to you. And Bradley Beal is what, 50 million or whatever he's making a year. I mean, that's a joke. You scoff at that. Bradley Beal is 12 million a year, making as much as DeAnthony Melton did a season ago, as Dennis Schroeder did a season ago. Then we're cooking with Crisco a little bit. So I ask you this. I give you a magic lamp. You rub that magic lamp and you get one wish, and that wish, I mean, it's a pre-negotiated wish. It's Dame Lillard or it's Bradley Beal. Now, Lillard would probably have to sit out the entire season after the Achilles injury, but could be good to go for that last dance. And he'd be fun. And he's got the Oakland tie. Or is it Bradley Beal who would be ready to go right away? Like, which one would strike more interest to you?
I think just given the injury to Dame right now, from the ability to contribute, would probably have to be Bradley Beal, because it's more of a known quantity. If we had the gift of foresight and could see that Lillard comes back 100% healthy, then I'd probably go Dame. I think there's a lot of reasons why Dame would want to come to, Golden State, like you just outlined. But also, too, with Bradley Beal, the other thing to think about isn't just the money component. It's more about the role that he was asked to play in Phoenix. I think if he were to come in, be the starting shooting guard on the Warriors, be that secondary ball handler, secondary creator. I don't want to sound like a broken record here, repeating the same terminology, but play finisher, shot maker. That would be the right role for him. He was, slotted into a third contributor down in Phoenix, which probably isn't necessarily the right slot for him, frankly. If you look at his offensive output, it was actually pretty good. I think he averaged around 18 points a game, true shooting around 60%. So he was pretty efficient. I think he finished like around the rim, around the 65% mark too. So, I mean, he was playing well offensively. It's just when you had Book and then Tyus Jones and then Kevin Durant and so many guys that needed to dribble the ball or, that were trying to create their own shot, that I think reduced some of his overall output, not necessarily harmed his efficiency. But equally on the defensive side of the ball, there was no one there that could kind of cover up Bradley Beal's, mistakes or shortcomings on the defensive end.
Now you'd have
And so
Jimmy and Draymond.
You got fingers crossed we get Al in there too, starting at center to kind of help out a little bit there. Maybe TJD off the bench with a little athletic pop.
Man, that lineup, Steph Curry, Bradley Beal, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Al Horford. How are you not intrigued? I mean, at the very least, how are you not intrigued?
Exactly, right? It'd be interesting to see how that could work, right? And Bradley Beal is, again, when we think about archetypes of players, right? That's why I keep using that, that terminology there of it's not a singular individual player. I'm not sitting here saying that, oh no, we need Malik Monk, and if that doesn't happen, I'm going to go protest in front of Chase Center, and I'm not going to a game ever again. That's not the point. The point is thinking about, who are the types of players that would fit into the system and that kind of help address the needs that this roster has right now. And Bradley Beal would be one of those. However, if, again, this is me just trying to read the tea leaves here, Chuck, and I would say that the tea leaves right now are telling me that the Clippers don't move off Norman Powell unless they have some indication that they have a very, very, very good chance of getting Bradley Beal. Again, I'm not a big J journalist. I don't have that intel. I'm just analyzing what I see, and that's what I see.
There you go. The big A, they call him. The big A, Mike Loginoff. He's going to give his analytical chops on Draymond Green moving forward. We're going to pose the question, the heartbeat of the Golden State Warriors in the past, is he still the heartbeat moving forward these next two final years of his contract? We're debating coming up on Locked On Dubs. All right, Draymond Green, man, you're a big Draymond Green guy, and I've been on the record many times saying, if you could get Zion Williamson from the Pelicans, and this is a long time ago now, he's had a few injuries and a few pots of gumbo since. With that being said, like if you can trade Draymond Green, get off his money, and bring in a younger, different type of four, I don't think it's the end of the world, right? Like from a emotional perspective and from that part of it, yes, it is. You're turning the page on an era, but in terms of someone and their production that they give you on both sides of the ball, and defensively, it's one of the best three players in the league. Offensively, it's that cerebral connection with Steph Curry that makes him valuable, and the occasional knockdown 3-point shooter that I think finished the season in the low to mid 30s, which was actually pretty good for Draymond's sake. But with that being said, like there are a lot of fours around the league that are making $25 million that, are two-way players that can affect the games in different ways. Is Draymond Green still at this age irreplaceable to you?
So I think everyone has a price, right? And that's the old adage. If you told me that there was a way that we could get Zion, then that's different, right? That Zion is a potential franchise foundational piece, right? Zion could carry the torch. We talked about that last season. My one concern about Zion, beyond some of the injuries and the gumbo down in down in New Orleans would be the Chipino here up in the Bay Area at Tadich Grill, potentially getting to Zion as well. But jokes aside, I think if we think about foundational pieces, that's different than, a kind of everyday run-of-the-mill starting format. I think Draymond, beyond the heartbeat aspect, is proven to still be one of, if not the best defender in the league. Frankly, I think last season he should have won the DPOY. I think it was a bit
I thought it was
tragic.
a lock. I think
Yeah,
Reggie
I
Miller said after one of the games, he was like, give him the award right now during the Lakers game after that late strip of Luka. Give him the award right now.
Yeah.
Spoke a little too soon.
And so I think that was a bit of they kind of took that one from Draymond, but I think the ability between him and Jimmy to play defense together at such a cerebral level is very unique. I think having two guys that can anticipate plays and that, are kind of on the same page on the defensive end is very important. And also, too, thinking about the rotation and the additions that the Warriors might be able to make, like the ones that we discussed earlier in the show, I think those alleviate some of Draymond's shortcomings on the offensive end. I think he shot the ball pretty well for stretches last season. Towards the end of the year, kind of got a little, I think there was just some wear and tear, frankly. But if you slot Draymond next to a stretch five like an Al Horford, and you allow him to still kind of be the free safety on defense, run the show, free safety / middle linebacker, playmaker, and the brains of the operation, I think that's a great spot for Draymond. And I think if you give him guys around him that can also knock down shots consistently beyond just Steph Curry in a starting lineup, I think that really becomes exciting, thinking about Draymond's ability to anticipate plays in the offensive end and find guys in the right place. We even saw him starting to develop a little bit of that chemistry with Jimmy last season, right? With that high-low look. How many times did we see Jimmy, isolate a smaller player, post him up, get a pass over the top, high point it, finish, and one, boom, right? And so Draymond found that. And so if you're telling me that we have Draymond out there with Steph, a Bradley Beal, a Norman Powell, or Malik Monk, whoever ends up playing that shooting guard position for the Warriors next season, and then Al Horford as well, you're going to have an open paint for his naked handoffs. And then you're also going to have a lot of shooters around him to spray the ball to. So long-winded way to say, don't get rid of Draymond. I'm a diehard Draymond guy, and I will die on that hill with you, with Carrie, with anyone else that wants to talk about it. But don't get rid of Draymond. He's the heart and soul of the team and just such a defensive force and cerebral offensive player.
Let's say in some hypothetical universe, they make it known that they're open to negotiations and they're willing to include Draymond Green in a package to return someone else. What do you think his value would be like around the league? Because there's always the notion that he's just a Warriors system guy, and that if he went to Detroit or if he went to New Orleans or if he went to one of these other franchises, he wouldn't be the same type of player. Do you debunk that?
No, I think that's a great question, Chuck. I think that he needs to be in the right situation, right? He needs to be in a situation where ideally he has someone who can play the five, right, to keep his body, fresh and less fatigued. And he also needs to have shooters around him to allow him to be on the floor, because Draymond, while he has been shooting better in the past couple of seasons, he doesn't command a closeout, right? So you have to have people around him to stretch the floor, so that way there are driving lanes for him. So I think he definitely benefits from the Warriors system, but frankly, I mean, that's what makes the Warriors system so unique, is the fact that it really is a strength in numbers approach, right? It's the fact that when there are, we're missing that secondary true scorer, I think, right? Because Jimmy, for being that, second star, has proven he's just as likely to, score 10 points as he is to score 30 points. And he showed up a lot towards the end, right, when Steph went down. But if you put the right pieces around Draymond, I still think that he can really contribute and have an outsized return. And that's kind of the glory of the Warrior system in itself, right? Is the way that guys can have an outsized impact. Even look at Loon, right? Pour one out for Loon and all his contributions. True Warrior, consummate Warrior. But even though Loon would only have 4 points, he would affect the game in so many different ways offensively, with his screen setting, with his knowledge of where people will be, his ability to swing the ball appropriately. And so that's the answer again is yes. I think his value would be a little bit less unless he's going to the right situation and the right system.
All right, on your way out the door, I want your Mount Rushmore of Bay Area foods, and obviously, you can find great stuff in the Mission. You can find great stuff in your hometown of San Mateo. You can find beautiful things in the city. You could find it in Oakland. Like the Bay Area has got some staples, man. Give me your 4. Your Mount Rushmore. You can mix it up region by region. You can go a peninsula spot. You can go South Bay. You can go East Bay. North Bay. I don't care. Just give me your 4, and we may see a bias to your hometown here.
Well, I think, you know what? Okay, fine. Here, let's think about kind of, we'll go one by one. Best sandwich spot, Mr. Pickles, San Mateo, California, the original. It's fantastic.
I got one in Daly City too, I believe. It's good stuff.
Yeah, but nothing's better than the original. I would say Original Joe's for just kind of a do it all restaurant. You can scratch anyone's itch and OJ's.
Eggplant parm? I don't see why not.
Yeah, eggplant parm. Dare I say maybe an espresso martini? Elena's espresso martini is really, that's for the ones that really know. And then
a little Buena Vista Irish coffee.
Yeah, a little Buena Vista Irish coffee. You can't go wrong with that. But Taddich Grill, also a San Francisco institution, right? I think we'll see. We'll have to, when the Pelicans come to town, sit outside there and just watch Zion, see how many bowls of Cioppino he puts down. And then also, this isn't necessarily Mount Rushmore, but now you really got me thinking. The Sub Center in West Portal is a really good one too, for those that know. Submarine Center, that's a classic San Francisco.
You must be a big sub guy, man. You're not going with any steakhouses. You're not going House of Prime.
No, we could do Hopper. We could do Hopper. Hopper's always delivers, right? But actually, oh gosh, what's the name of it on Broadway there?
Leave those in the comments for Mike. If you got any staples that he hasn't tried, leave them in there for him and for me.
Kokari, there's been Steve Kerr sightings there before. Just saying. And then also too, but Sam's, the burger joint on Broadway and Columbus and the city. Anthony Bourdain himself said it was a top 3 burger he's ever had. So, and look, hey. It may look like it, but I'm not that much of an eater, Chuck. So, but Sam's, if Bourdain says it's good, it must be good.
Can I interest you in a little chicken box on Broadway? That was 45 seconds from 95.7 and KPIX. So that was a staple of mine, but probably not in the Mount Rushmore. Anyways, Mike, good stuff, man. This is Locked On Warriors, free and available wherever you get your audio podcast. Check us out on YouTube, and we will see you soon. Peace, everyone.